not really and because they will capture the audio from there, not I cannot make audio fit from they have down to here we can đặt MacBook rồi stay they just get only audio L for headphone for the headphone not for the headset so we don't it's not like the NDP laptop like this laptop but in but out what's for this I totally forgot that
Yeah, that sucks.
that's right.
So all audio captured through the MacBook, right?
Yeah, so I try to triple that. Yeah, but it's really out because if we do that, we get all around the noise.
I have this someone here. So how can I see it on video or something like that?
What do you mean?
I mean, I have been busy,
Yeah.
but I like to listen to this.
Actually, we go to the YouTube channel and we
Yes.
watch that.
Your YouTube channel?
Yeah,
Yes.
YouTube channels of Nordic Summit. All the video on sessions will be there. Not really clear because actually the audio is quite not good, especially for the next hole. But this is quite okay. This is okay.
So I will find all
Yeah,
the
you can
things.
find all of the presentation.
You will not delete it. You will.
No, of course, no. We get that file. Yeah, so everyone can pre-watch it, but the quality is really not good. Maybe next year we need to do.
It's not a problem. I just want to take some ideas from this one.
Yeah, just just go there and you can watch anytime. It's available there.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, okay. It's up to you. You go to you do the thesis about related stuff, right?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I'm gonna start writing about the blockchain, like
Oh my God.
cryptocurrency and stuff like that. Yeah, man. And but I mean, I'm not technician, so I'm from the business administration, and it's gonna
Yeah.
be tough.
You have use your business EBM, business administration, business
Yeah.
management,
Yeah.
or you. So your major is in finance.
Not really. It's just
So
like
what's your
business
major?
administration. What?
What? So just
Just
general.
international business mostly. Yeah.
That's
Oh my God. Why you chose that's really tough?
Yeah, but I mean, it's interesting for me, so why not?
But it's really tough.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. In the bottom side, finance and also the technical.
Yeah, technically is the
Yeah,
best.
so it's really tough. And then mostly many people do it. I study really related to the IT
Yeah.
or the finance.
I mean, actually, like I've seen a lot of theses about like things connected with blockchain from Malta University, and it was bachelor physicists, and they also like from business administration part. So I don't know. We'll just see. Where do you study?
What I'm studying business information technology
Where?
in Laura.
What?
In Laura University. 10 minutes for the train. From here. And
not because the production they have. So if the data is a new oil, the companies should transform their businesses to be more data-driven than processes-driven. What does it mean to be data-driven? Because data itself, you know, it's just the records. And the clients, people generate, so the companies generate internal data, a lot of them. And even they are, I think, quite good in analyzing those internal data. But on the other hand, there are consumers, clients, people who generate additional external data. And those types of the data, they are growing very, very fast. And it is really hard for the companies to leverage those external data. Analyzing internal data and you know, move them into information sources is easier. But putting those information into external context is much harder. To understand all those external data in the different types, you know, not only text data, but all types of unstructured data, movies, audio, etc. Let me check if I'm on the good track. I don't want to lose some important information. Yeah. So I think that, you know, looking at the trends, how the data around us growing, there are three important types of the knowledge we deal on a daily basis in our businesses, but also in the private lives. So the knowledge, you know, what we know that we know. Then we have this big portion of the information, what we know that we don't know. But then, the biggest part is what we don't know that we don't know. And the future of the businesses and the future of the economy and the data monetization challenge is really how to address this last part. How to know more about what I don't know. Because then I can start to address this. Because if I'm totally not aware what's going on, so then the disruption will come. There is ignorance there, yeah, because I don't know, maybe, about my new biggest competitions, new biggest challenges. But looking at the data, there is, you know, there is a lot of potential, a lot of opportunities. We know that there is a value in the data, that we need to protect them. But there are also challenges, and those challenges, starting from the legal part, like data localization. In many countries, the data localization is forced by law. We cannot move some of the data outside of the country borders. It is especially for the regulated industries, like banking, energy utilities, critical infrastructure, public administration. How to provide the safety, security, and the privacy for the machine-generated data, because they need to be transferred and accessed to the other sensors and machines. So how to address this? Not only from the, you know, legal perspective, but at the very basic technical level. But important is, based on my experience, that really when we focus on the data, when we start investigating what we don't know, and increase even our knowledge about what we don't know, then we are able to innovate. Then we are able to provide, to be aware about new opportunities. What is internet? We moved our businesses and our lives into internet. You know, everything almost in the digital economy is based on the internet. And internet changed the way we do business, we trade, e-commerce. So we could observe this, especially since, you know, the e-commerce boom in the late 90s, and then mobility with all the potential. So we are doing most of the interaction using the mobile devices, even at work. and also the way how we can scale up change because of the internet. Estonia is a great example. It's a great example how to think differently what is possible in the digital era. So their e-residency program is an example that the nation can scale up, not only by opening the borders for the immigrants, but maybe by, opening the digital platform for new businesses and new people. I don't know how the program is effective still, if they are happy with this, but as an idea that not only companies but nations can scale up. I think it is really, really interesting. So business is borderless, markets are global, but we shouldn't forget that internet never was designed as a trusted and safe network. And it is not a trusted place right now. It is trustless by design. And assuming, knowing how much of our businesses, how much of public services is delivered right now over internet, will open a lot of questions. Are we really aware about those things? I think that recently, during the last 2 years, the number of the fake news, manipulations, and the cyber threats increased the awareness. But in general, I think that most of the people, they are sure that internet is safe, but it is not safe. So we need technologies like blockchain, which will help us to make business B2B and B2C interaction more secure, more private, and more transparent. So let's jump very quickly into 2 examples. So I would like to present our cooperation with the Maersk when we built cross-border supply chain platform, and Maersk is a logistic company, but they connect the buyer and the seller. So within the examples, we will see the transportation of the flowers from Africa to the Netherlands, looking how technologies such as blockchain, but not only blockchain, there is a lot of IoT here, a lot of analytics too, can provide higher level of automation and more transparency, more trust to the own players. Can you play the movie?
The following is a demonstration of how IBM and Maersk are partnering to digitize and simplify global trade using blockchain to create trust and transparency in the supply chain. Global trade functions much as it has since the introduction of the shipping container in 1956. Manual paper-based processes are still common, and information about the status of goods is locked away in organizational silos. Today, 90% of goods in global trade are carried by the shipping industry, with the supply chain slowed by the complexity and sheer volume of point-to-point communication across a loosely coupled web of land transportation providers, freight forwarders, customs brokers, governments, ports, and ocean carriers. IBM and Maersk are addressing this problem with a distributed, permission platform accessible by the supply chain ecosystem designed to exchange event data and handle document workflows. Maersk and IBM are employing blockchain technology to create a global tamper-proof system for digitizing trade workflow and tracking shipments end-to-end, eliminating frictions, including costly point-to-point communications. The collaboration will launch with the potential ability to track millions of container journeys per year and integrate with customs authorities on selected trade lanes. In a recent test by Maersk, shipping a single container of flowers from Kenya to the port of Rotterdam resulted in a stack of nearly 200 communications. Using this example, we will examine how blockchain has been implemented to create trust and security in the digitized document workflow and improve the efficiency of global supply chains. Here we can see each distinct entity involved in the transaction: the growers, export authorities, ports, customs, and importers. Shipping from the port of Mombasa requires signatures from 3 different agencies approving the export and 6 documents that describe the origin, chemical treatment, quality of the produce, and customs duties. Firstly, using a PC or mobile device, the Kenyan farm submits a packing list that becomes visible to all participants. This action initiates a smart contract that enforces an export approval workflow between the 3 agencies. As each agency signs, the status is updated for all to see. Simultaneously, information about the inspection of the flowers, the sealing of the refrigerated container, the pickup by the trucker, and the approval from customs is communicated to the port of Mombasa, allowing them to prepare for the container. All actions relating to the documents and the physical goods are captured and shared. Which documents were submitted, when and by whom, where the flowers are, and who is in possession of them, and the next steps in their journey. Flowers are perishable, so it's crucial that there are no delays or missteps. Blockchain provides a secure data exchange and a tamper-proof repository for these documents and shipping events. This system could significantly reduce delays and fraud, saving billions of dollars annually, and according to the WTO, reducing barriers within the international supply chain could increase worldwide GDP by almost 5% and total trade volume by 15%. For more information on how IBM can help make
Let's jump to another example because we just need to speed up. Digital trade chain. So in the previous example, we can see that all the participants, at the different steps, the customs, the mercs, the buyer, the sellers, the ports, they have access to the same data at the same time. And all of them, they know that nobody can change data. So they can trust the system because the cryptography takes care about the consistency and the immutability of the solutions. Digital trade chain. This example is important for me because it pushes a little bit 2 topics. Collaboration in the digital era. So it is more about collaborating with current partners and competitors than it was in the past. Peer-to-peer platforms, sharing economy. These are facts right now. We need to deal with this. And sometimes for the greater value, for our clients, for our businesses, for economy, we need to collaborate with the companies which are usually our competitors. So the collaboration is really a key in the digital era. Another aspect is inclusiveness. So looking at the number of people without access to clean water or the toilet, I can mention on top to this that there is 1.5 billion people who cannot provide the proof for their identities. So they cannot participate in the global economy. Maybe not in Europe, but even at the global level, there is like 35% of the adult population without banking account. How they can do business? Half of the small and medium enterprises, they don't have access to the formal credit. And looking at the informal enterprises and micro enterprises, the number is even bigger. So blockchain is also a technology which can help solve this issue. So let's look at another example.
If you're buzzing to get a new business relationship off to a flying start, you'll want to test the ground first before things can start to open up and begin to blossom. Take John Beer Brewers, for example. They just got emailed an interesting offer from French drinks distributors, Boisson, who want to place a large order for Belgian beers. There isn't much information available about them, so John Beer Brewers want to play it safe and want upfront payment. Boisson don't see that as an option and prefer to receive the delivery now and pay later. Now they're both stuck and wondering how to move forward. It all comes down to trust and confidence in what could be a very profitable relationship. That's where the help of a neutral and trusted partner and our digital trade chain application comes in. It lets...
So I stopped this because we are like almost out of time to tell you that there are 7 big European banks who created the joint digital trade chain platform. dedicated for the small, medium enterprises to help them do cross-border business. And it is possible thanks to blockchain, because they know that they can expose their data to the platform, being sure that the privacy will be addressed, that the data are secure, that there is transparency and the access to the data, but also trust and security at the level which they expect. So just summarizing, for the global trade, but also for the digital economy, innovation is not an option anymore. It's like a daily basis business. Co-opetition, so collaboration with your competitions. It's also important part of the business strategy. And we will see more and more this type of the business models, especially thanks to the blockchain, distributed ledger technologies, because this technology is for the ecosystem, not for a single company. Internet of Things and AI will bring the automation, business automation, on the next level, not only internally. And as our global objectives, finally we have technology when we can address inclusiveness challenges at the global scale. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Carolina. Please stay on the stage. We have a couple of minutes time for questions. So, anybody, any questions whatsoever? I have one question. How do you see that the blockchain and then, of course, the Bitcoin that has gained quite a lot of popularity these days, and also the media? How do you see, is the Bitcoin also going to be a part of this type of trusted relationships between the seller and the buyer?
So very interesting question. So I think the blockchain is a really, big bubble, yeah? So we can have public blockchain, anonymous blockchain, like Bitcoin. We can have private blockchains, like for the business use cases. And if you mentioned Bitcoin, it's like about the cryptocurrency. Yeah, so I think I see a lot of need for the digital currency. Yeah. The cash is very costly. Managing cash, like for the countries even like Finland, Australia, to delivering the cash and taking care of this is very costly. So I think the future of the currencies should be digital currency. And the blockchain is good technology to address this. I'm not sure if we need anonymous blockchain for this use case, because in my opinion, one of the biggest issues with Bitcoin is that it is totally anonymous. So the question is, do we want to do the business, even if I'm, buying a coffee here, but I get the receipt? If there will be anything wrong with the coffee, I can go back and tell, I feel sick right now, and it is your responsibility. In the world when every participants are anonymous, you cannot go and say, you sold me this, yeah? So, but on the other hand, we need to take care of the privacy. So I think it's like a balance. But I think there will be use cases for both types of the, peer-to-peer platforms, and there is a lot of need for this, because those peer-to-peer platforms, they bring us somehow, the sense of the society, that we as humans can do something together without authority, without the government, maybe on a smaller scale, help each other. And I think this is phenomenal. It's like, like humans, that technology can somehow help us to take responsibility for some of the challenges.
All right, thank you, Carolina, very much. It's been a pleasure having you here. Okay, one more round of applause. I think that it must be the organizer, because they are putting the speakers with the very, very difficult family names here, back and back, but nevertheless, I will try to do my best. So we are going to continue the same topic here, and we're going to now go a little bit deeper about the blockchain. So thank you, Carolina, for your presentation. The next one on the stage will be MultiCloud, and she's the head of R&D and innovation at Atos company, and more than 20 years experience in innovation and R&D, half of that in big corporations and half founding and funding startups in Europe and in the Silicon Valley. So Nicholas leads multinational engineering teams for upcoming trends and technologies to business-applied services. For the past few years, he's been driven the global R&D and innovation at Atos worldwide, leading teams to focus on find, evaluate, prioritize, and drive to market reality all the disruptive technologies, usages, instilling innovation, igniting new services, and increasing performances and efficiency in their portfolios. Nicholas joined Atos Group back in 2009 and holds a software and hardware engineering degree from EFRE, backed by a startup specialized MBA course from the Hague in France. So very well established guy, and I truly hope that you listen very carefully and ask a lot of questions, because it's good to have a talent on the podium. So Nicholas, please, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon to you all. Can you hear me right? Yes. Okay, perfect. So just to continue what Caroline has just started, so I'm going to give you some global information regarding first the blockchain in general, and then delve into some concrete examples. So at the end of this session, I hope that you'll be all convinced that the blockchain is really technology that allows many different use cases, many different verticals, and that is really something that is very important. So first and foremost, I will just try to, with a very simple and short definition, which is the blockchain is, there's only one word to remember, is protocol. A blockchain is an IT protocol, like many other protocols that we are using every day. It's a protocol that brings two different features, trust and traceability, for many different markets and for end-to-end services that are digital, of course. So some words of caution first. You all heard about cryptocurrencies, but cryptocurrencies are just the tip of the iceberg. So blockchains are not just about organized crime, it's not about only anonymous. It's just a protocol that alleviates some problem and that allows us and many other companies to solve our customers' problems. So it's a very powerful protocol that can be used in many different vertical and use cases. So we're going to delve here into the emerged part of the iceberg. Some other words of caution. In Bitcoin in particularity, not really in the blockchain, but there are words that are not really used in a proper way. So for instance, when you talk about ledgers, they do not always bear account numbers. It's actually pretty rare. They have information, but not account numbers. Miners are not dwarves with pickaxes who are hitting the rock to extract new gold. They're just IT processors who are paid for their duty. Consensus does not always mean a majority. The consensus is just a way to reach to an agreement. And an oracle is not an old man with a gray beard who's going to predict the future. It's just a third party who's going to tell whether one is right or the other is right. So I assume that people invented the Bitcoin, but there must have been some advanced Dungeons and Dragons players, and they probably wanted to keep some of the words they like, but you really have to focus on its pure IT technology. So as you may have heard, I always say blockchains, plural, not just blockchain. Blockchain is a technology, and blockchains are the different implementation. There's many different flavors. To the day, there's thousands of different blockchains. We're not going to cover them all, of course. There's a lot of overlap, but there are some that are really different from one another, and the purpose is different. They're servicing different purposes. So we're mostly working on 5 different blockchains. Bitcoin, that you all know, Hyperledger, thanks to IBM with the Fabric, Ethereum, Ripple, multi-chain, and of course there are many different offers around the blockchain. So when we talk about blockchain, we're talking about several instantiations of the protocol that we're going to select depending on the use case on the solution we want to bring. So the blockchain is all over the place. I just took this picture from a website. And as you know, blockchain is of course used for financial services, that's a no-brainer, governance and voting, healthcare, music, Internet of Things, media, and they even forgot some, transport, logistic, energy, insurance. So as you can see, the blockchain is really not only about financial services. Blockchain is used in financial services, of course, but not only. But there's many different ways of really leveraging that technology. So Atos has been working on the blockchain for many years now. We have created a blockchain workforce where the first goal is to train and educate people. We want to have people internally who understand what blockchain can do and what blockchains can't do. Just be able to select the right one and use the proper blockchain for the proper solution. We have more than 15 talks and demos for different verticals, different use cases. We're participating to several European and broader projects, and we're also contributing to one major blockchain. Just to keep track, we started in 2013 when we first accepted Bitcoin on online payment, then we accepted Bitcoin on our terminal, then we started working on smart contracts, and then we really started in 2016 work on many different talks. We started to have first collaborative projects, we started to have our first deployment that I'll present a little bit later. And starting this year, we kept on working on different talks, we evaluated different technologies. The two we are working really a lot on these days are multi-chain and Hyperledger, mostly Fabric, and other collaborative projects. So, if I just try to give you a simple vision of how blockchain works, and I just take the Bitcoin example, this is how I would do. First, you cannot use blockchain in all the use cases, so you have to have a context. The context, the way I present it is the following. First, you need to have a group of people, the little pyramid here, okay? And those users must have a common goal. And part of that common goal must be to store information, and they must not have faith, trust in each other. So if you have a group of people that don't trust each other, you need to usually to have a notary who's going to take care of solving that, of taking care of that information. So the only way to do that today, it's the centralized governance, is that you line up all of the users, you connect them to internet into a secure environment where your data is stored, and you have the master of data who swears that data has not been corrupted. You can trust them. This is the only way to go. What brings the blockchain is the decentralized approach. So you take all these peers, you put them in a peer-to-peer environment with a secure and trust-by-design environment. So here, it's mathematical functions which ensure the fact that once the data has been written, it cannot be changed, it cannot be erased, it cannot be modified. So in that case, you don't need that person who takes care of the data for all the people, the system takes care of it. Very quickly, the different asset, of course, you don't have to have the master of data, it's secure, it's scalable. Usually when I say scalable, I have some rumor in the room that says, yeah, but Bitcoin is not really scalable. Yes, Bitcoin is one example of a blockchain. For many very good reasons, the choices made to create the Bitcoin makes it not very scalable, but most, if not all of the other blockchains are scalable, so by construction. It's multi-tenant, very easy to interface, standalone, and it's very easily manageable. So, just to understand what a blockchain does, let's take the Bitcoin example. Picture the blockchain as being a plane, the plane you see here. In that plane, you have coins that are stuck in the plane. They cannot get in, they cannot get out. They can only slide. Around that plane, you have users. In the Bitcoin use case, they are authentified, not identified. They have a login password, so they're authentified, but you don't know who they are. Okay? And you have a blockchain that is empty. What the Bitcoin blockchain does is the following. If a coin moves from one pyramid to another pyramid, the system will just note, it will write in stone in an immutable way that that coin went from that pyramid to that pyramid. If it moves again, it will note that it moved again, and again, and again. All this information cannot be changed, and they are put in order, they appear in time, okay? They are chronologically ordered. So, in a nutshell, this is just what the Bitcoin blockchain does, logging the change of coins between authenticated users. So let's take a look at the three main usages of the blockchain. The first one is that you have one of the nodes that writes and all of the others that read. One example, a state. You have the finished state, the finished state will write each time a baby is born that that baby is born in Finland, so it's Finnish. Okay? And all the other can only read, they can't write. So to prove your nationality, all you have to say is look up in that blockchain and you will find my name in that blockchain. If you find my name, that means that the state wrote it. If the state wrote it, I'm Finnish. So this is the classical ID use case. Second use case, the reverse one. You have one person that writes, other person writes, and only one person reads. That's the case for voting. Let's imagine we create a blockchain. You all have either authentified or identified access where you can run one write in the blockchain. I can only read, so you can easily vote. You cannot read, so you cannot see what has been voted by the other people. And I cannot vote, but I can read and count what has been the different votes. So this is the voting system. Third use case, everybody reads, everybody writes. That's a little bit more complex, but it works really fine. And this is the cryptocurrency way, asset management, smart contracts, and things like that. So now let's just delve into really concrete use cases so that you can really picture what a blockchain can do and can't do. E-health environment. So are we in the classical blockchain context? You can believe me, we are. So we are here in an environment where you have a blockchain. You have me, authentified. You have my family doctor, the pharmacy, the ER. On the upper right corner, you can see that my health history is stored in a cloud, in a secure cloud, not in the blockchain. The blockchain is not a database. Okay? So my data is securely stored, for instance, on an Atos secure environment. When I go and meet with my doctor, my credentials and his credentials log on to the blockchain, and the blockchain will remember that on that date, at that very time, I was with that doctor. It also opens up some information access. The doctor has access to my health history in read mode, and he can write prescriptions. The blockchain will note the fact that he looked at this document, and he wrote that prescription. The blockchain doesn't have to store the document, because in that case the documents are in the cloud. But the blockchain will remember the hash, the signature of each document. So the blockchain can say precisely what document was read, what document was written. Then I go to the pharmacy. Same thing, we both authenticate. The blockchain knows I'm at the pharmacy right now. He reads the prescription, gives me some medication. The blockchain will know the fact that he read that prescription, thanks to the signature. But I still don't feel good, I have to go to the ER. In that case, I want them to have full access to everything. And now they can check, reading the blockchain, as everything has been very fully written, they can check what happened. So they can say, if the pharmacist didn't take the right prescription, or if he didn't give me the right medication, or if my doctor didn't write the right prescription, or if he didn't look at the right documents. So thanks to that, I have a full history, a notary writing of everything that happened for my health. Another use case with SnapSwap. SnapSwap is an instant messaging application that we work with, where we're allowed to have peer-to-peer instant payment. So in a nutshell, I'm on the left hand here, and I want to send to a friend the equivalent of 40 euros, but he lives in the UK, so he wants to have pounds. Again, the blockchain is a plane. Again, you see the different users, and here you have two types of users. You have regular users like me, and you have SnapSwap users. SnapSwap users are super users that have the right to take real money and to exchange it for coins in that plane. So I'm going to give 40 euros to a SnapSwap node who's going to trade it for some tokens for the equivalent of 40 euros. Then I can very easily send, thanks to the blockchain, those coins, those tokens, to my friend. And we're almost there. Now he has tokens, but he would like to have pounds. Now all he has to do is just find a SnapSwap node that can trade coins for pounds, and he will trade those coins back for pounds. This is a classical example, thanks to the blockchain, of instant, peer-to-peer instant payment, for instance, cross-border one. Another example, car maintenance book. Imagine each time you take your car to the garage for maintenance or anything, the car is given back to you with an invoice where everything has been written in it. So just imagine that this information can be put into a blockchain, either by the garage directly or by yourself, for future reference. Which means that the day you want to sell your car used, you can give the credential to the future buyer so that he can check by himself that your car has been properly serviced, that the oil has been changed every 20,000 kilometers, etc., etc. Again, you have a full history of what happened to the car that cannot be changed, that cannot be tampered. So of course, it's useful for us, but it's useful for car manufacturers who often lose track of what happened to the car once it's out of their brand new garages. It's interesting for the insurances. Now we talk more and more about sharing and things like that. I'm renting a car or I'm carpooling with someone. My insurance wants to know, is the car you're going to ride in, is it properly maintained? So this is the kind of thing that can be automatically done in a very efficient manner. Another use case, ticketing, smart concept ticketing. So just imagine that you have here a company that sells tickets. The blockchain will be used as a point where the information will come so that you can be sure that if you buy a ticket from someone else, that you have a real, genuine ticket and not a fake copy. So first, those people will be buying the ticket. As you can see, when the ticket is exchanged, you have the bank of the user that sends money to the live music company. So these people are buying the tickets. But so far today, this is as far as visibility goes. If your ticket is sold to somebody else, nobody has a trace of it. Thanks to the blockchain, now the ticket can go from people to people, being paid between them. And you still have the traceability of which are each single ticket. So there's no copy, and you have a clear view of who is owning what. Which in case of a concert being cancelled, allows the company to recall the tickets and to pay the money back to the users. Another example, logistics. So in that case, I mean, we've been discussing this with many of our partners. For instance, Siemens is a good partner of ours, so this is discussions we're having with them. So imagine here with a manufacturing environment, so you have lots of different players. People who are providing raw material, first manufacturers. Let's imagine that we are the last manufacturer, so we're finalizing the product, and we have transporter, retailer, consumer. All of these parallelepipeds here represent information system. The only way to have end-to-end traceability is to break up all the information systems. IT people don't like to let people get in their information system. So the blockchain allows to put a plane on top of this. So you don't change anything below. You add a plane on top of it, and you just create APIs between the different information systems and your blockchain plane, where you'll be simply pushing and pulling just the right amount of information, and thanks to that, you can track the whole life cycle of a product. But what happens if I have a problem with one of those nodes? Imagine I have a problem with that transporter. That's okay. I just revoke this one. I just create the API with a new one, and I'm not losing the history. I still have the full history. So that's what I mean by traceability, scalability, volatility of the blockchain. This was not possible before. Another example, identity and reputation. We have lots of our customers who say, I would love to have my customer to subscribe very easily in a digital world, but I need to be sure that they are over 18. So I have to ask them for their ID, they send a copy. I'm never sure it's right. It's very complicated. So how do you do that? We're going to use the blockchain. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create an entry about myself. I'm Nicolas, and I create an entry on the blockchain saying I am over 18. But that is just self-declaration. It doesn't mean anything. I could say whatever I want. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to ask identity providers, so people who already know me, who already have my credentials, like my bank, my car insurance, the state, to validate the fact that I'm over 18. So I'm going to ask them to certify, to sign my declaration. So they're going to come here and say, this entry that says Nicola is over 18, they say, I stamp it. So now on my declaration, I have a stamp from my bank, a stamp from a major insurance, and a stamp from the state that confirms the fact that I'm over 18. Well, this becomes sufficient for any other supplier to ensure that I am over 18. So in that case, I can create an opt-in, a subscription with full traceability and full authenticity in a very, very fast environment. Another example, pay on delivery, which is pretty close from one of the examples presented just before. The idea here is really to say, on the digital environment, I can easily create an order and have it paid immediately. But what I want is to ensure that my payment will only be there when the product is there. So I want to link the transport to the ordering and to the payment. So thanks to smart contracts and thanks to the blockchain, we can easily create an environment where the purchase will be sent to the bank that will then confirm to the seller that the order will be paid if delivered properly, which means the person can give it to the transporter, and the transporter will be the triggering of the payment. And all this becomes possible thanks to the blockchain, because in that case we're going to have a full traceability. So we'll first write in the blockchain that an order has been made. The bank will come and sign, say, okay, I will pay that order if that order is delivered. Then the seller is okay. He knows that the bank signed the fact that it will be paying if he does the part of his job. So then he asks the transport guy to say, you transport that, and you also will be only paid when the package is fully received. And once the confirmation is delivered, then the moving of all funds can be made. So, as a takeaway, I hope that I convinced you that the blockchain is really something that can be used in many different usages, that we can create lots of different opportunities, so the verticals are different, but the usages between identity, voting, traceability, or payments are really very, very different use cases. That it's a design that is a little bit different, but that is purely IT, it's a protocol. We're talking here about transactions that are authenticated, secured, and processed by peers. And that, of course, we are intending to use that new technology, that new engine, to fuel our future services and to solve problems that were not solved up to now. Now, if you have questions.
All right. Thank you. So, any questions from the audience? If not, I will break. There you go, Mohit. You have a question now?
So, thanks for the very interesting presentation. I had a question. In the beginning, you talked about the citizenship database. So, like, people change their citizenships, right? They move to a new country. So even if I'm born in Finland and I have a Finnish citizenship, I go and acquire new citizenships, or maybe I have dual citizenships. So I just wonder how does it work with blockchains in that case? And kind of related question was, do we need blockchains in all the use cases that you presented? Like, does it have an advantage to have a blockchain? So for example, this medical use case, I already go to a doctor and my prescription is online, I go to the pharmacy. So it's currently done only with databases, not with blockchain. So what is the incentive for the hospitals and these medicine providers to move to something of a blockchain, because databases can actually provide a lot of those services?
Okay. So just to answer quickly to the two questions, so of course, like I said, in the blockchain, nothing can be removed. So you are born in Finland, so you are Finnish by birth, but you can change nationality. So in that case, there's simply a new entry that will be added to the system, and as people just read it from the most recent information to the oldest information, they will be looking for a hit about you, so they will find actually both information. So after that, it's up to them to take the most recent information. So the fact that you were born here will never change. You were born here, so it's written, it's history. But then things can change, and there will be just updates in the chain that changes that. So there's going to be some sort of yes/no flag that's going to say that. To respond to the second question, of course, and thank God that all the use cases that are presented are not only brand new when we have to create everything around it. So the case that you presented is absolutely right. Today, most of the countries, you already have an authentication, digital key. Doctors have that, pharmacy has that, etc. But the thing is, like you said, now when the information is available, well, information is available, but from different sources. So hospitals have their own database. Pharmacies, branches have their own database. Doctors or the state have their own databases. So you have already 3 different versions. So you have to reconcile them. That's the first hardest part. But the thing is that nothing guarantees you that the information has not been modified. Because it's a database and it can be altered. The answer that we're bringing here, that is something that interests the state, is that A, there's no reconciliation because everybody is using the same database. And the fact that there is no hacking, no modification possible. So here, there's only one. Today, there are many different histories, and often we take the history we prefer. With the blockchain, there will be only one history for everybody. So it's just an evolution. Instead of to go from today to tomorrow, instead of writing in the database, we'll be writing into the blockchain. And we can import, we can reconcile today everything that is in the databases, and once we have one version of the same story, then we can simply import it in a new blockchain and continue working on the blockchain.
All right. Any
other follow-up question?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. So just quickly, so combining a lot of data also means I lose my privacy. So maybe I don't want, like when I move to a new country and acquire new citizenship, maybe I don't want people to know that I was born in some other country before. So that's one aspect. And I also wonder how performance is affected. So now if I want to look up someone's citizenship and it's in a database, I look up whatever SQL or Excel, whatever database, and I look it up. But in case of blockchain, I would have to go through the entire history. So I'm not an expert on this, but I just wonder how would the performance be impacted if for every lookup I have to start from the beginning, because things may have been overwritten later on.
Absolutely right. So it's a very good question. The way the blockchain is constructed is that you always go from the most recent information to the oldest information, and you have hash tables absolutely everywhere. So you find very quickly, you don't have to browse line by line, you find your information very quickly. It's been designed to do that. So finding your information is really not the problem. Now what you said about privacy is a very good question. And like I said, blockchain is a protocol, and the way you implement it will drive what you want to do with it. A blockchain that will be fully private will be designed, will have editorial choices that are done so that it stays private. So for instance, you could have a totally encrypted, only permissions, so only people with their full identity provided who can log. So in that kind of cases, you would be the only person giving access to your information. So you'll be the one having access to your information. All the other people would just see gibberish. Only you can have access to that. So, and that's if you take Bitcoin, that was one of the first things that they really wanted to implement, is a totally anonymous environment. So here your privacy is totally secure. So the blockchain by design are created to do that. You can choose to do it or not do it, but it's already embedded in the system. So some use cases need privacy, some use cases are just not needing privacy. So in that case, you just don't implement it. So that's why I said many blockchains to solve different problems. But privacy is an issue that is totally solved by the blockchain approach.
All right, any other questions from the audience? All right, if not, a big round of applause for Nicolas. Thank you very much for your insight. hope to leave, so we are back here 15 minutes past 3, and then it's time for the alternative facts and the fake news and everything else which is not true in this world. So please be back 15 minutes past 3. Thank you.
Just tell me what you want to
Еще Маша очень
Fact-checking is just one solution to the multi-faced problem of fake news. Fact-checkers fight is valiant, but how can they keep up in such a tumultuous time like we are living right now? So in full fact, the UK's independent fact-checking charity discussed how to plan to make fact-checking dramatically more effective with technology that exists now. Also, and this is not a fake news, and more alternative fact, Mevan actually has been participating in his student years in a pancake eating competition, and she managed to do 20 pancakes under 5 minutes. So give a big hand for Mevan Patukka.
Not easy eating 20 pancakes. Thank you. Important. Okay, what we believe about the world affects the decisions that we make. That's true for whether we're citizens or presidents. Bad information leads to bad decisions. What we believe can also be distorted by the long-term effect of repeated misrepresentation and by the short-term effect of campaigns that willfully misrepresent or distort the facts. In the last 12 months, we've seen both effects having significant impact around the world, notably in the US elections and the EU referendum. Let me give you an example. In the UK, if you ask someone who voted to leave the EU, for every 100 people, how many do you think are immigrants? A Leave voter would say 20. A Remain voter would say 10. The real answer is 5. Distortions in the media, rhetoric and spin are big parts of political events, and we've had many more political events in the last few years. All of it's been summed up as a post-truth world full of fake news, and although these labels might not be helpful, the problem is unmistakable. You and I, we have an easy answer: distrust everything. But nothing could do more damage to democracy. According to Ipsos Mori, only 1 in 5 of us now trust politicians and journalists to tell the truth. That's pretty low. It changes when you look at specific organizations and specific journalists and specific politicians, but on average, 1 in 5 of us. In the past, the pragmatic solution was to decide for yourself what source of information you trust, and to pick that one, which was easy when there was a handful of TV channels and newspapers, but trust is horizontal now, not vertical. We live in an age when an authoritative source of information can be generated overnight. Averages aren't enough in the face of lived experience either. So what can we do in the face of all this? We can just ban everything. I think that's a good solution sometimes. But actually we should be quite wary about the reactions that people are having that seek to curb free speech. I don't think stopping people saying things online is a good solution. I'm here to argue that fact-checking is the free speech response to misinformation. And it's essential that technology that exists isn't just restricted to the people who are misleading. It's actually also being used by our journalists and fact-checkers so that they can keep up. Before I go into what we're building and why and who I am, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the term fake news. It's not very helpful, and it doesn't begin to explain the complexity of the different types of misinformation and disinformation that exists. Misinformation is the inadvertent sharing of false information, so you accidentally shared something, sorry. Disinformation is deliberately creating something and sharing it knowing that it's false. To understand fake news and the information ecosystem, you need to know 3 things: the different types of information, the different motivations, and the different ways that that content can be disseminated throughout the internet. So, there are 7 different types of misinformation. They sit on a scale that loosely measures the intent to deceive. On one side, you have satirical content, and on the other, you have fabricated content, entirely meant to mislead. In the middle, we have misleading content, false context, imposter content. A good example of imposter content is the website abcnews.com. abcnews.com is a real website, but there's a website called abcnews.com.co, which looks exactly the same. And a lot of people mistake it for the real ABC News website. Another example is the Facebook Al Jazeera videos that are mostly text and some images every now and then. Those are very easy to replicate and to put an Al Jazeera photo on the side or a logo on the side. Lots of content nowadays is just branding and colors and fonts, really. It's very easy to turn that into whatever you want and push it out into the world as if it was a legitimate thing from a company. So these are the 7 types. These are the different motivations. If we're serious about developing solutions to fake news, we have to understand why are people making the things that they are. There are lots of reasons. Poor journalism is one. To parody, like the satirical content we're seeing, partisanship, to push forward a particular agenda, and then just out-and-out propaganda at the bottom. The one that I'd like to talk about a little bit more is profit. The platforms, the social media platforms, are now waking up to a problem that they in part created with their advertising revenue models. The famous example is the Macedonian teenagers who, during the US elections, made a 4-figure sum every month by putting fake stories into the world. Between August and November, one of them earned nearly $16,000 off of his 2 pro-Trump websites. $16,000. The average monthly salary in Macedonia is $371. It's very lucrative, this fake news business. The third thing, so we've done types and motivations. The third thing is the dissemination techniques. We need to think about how this content is being shared. Some of it's being shared by people on social media clicking retweet accidentally. I've done it, you've done it, we all know. Some of it is being amplified by journalists who are now under more pressure than ever to accurately report on emerging real-time information. Some of it is being pushed out by loosely connected people who are deliberately attempting to influence public opinion, and some of it's being disseminated as part of a sophisticated disinformation campaign through bot networks and troll factories. Some of it has nation-state resources behind it. If you'd like to find out more about the different types and the different dissemination techniques, there's a really great blog post that I recommend from Claire Wardle, who runs First Draft News. It's called Fake News, It's Complicated. So I'm going to take you away from journalism and politics for a minute and talk to you about fear. We all have a role in building trust and combating misinformation. This is true for individuals, but also companies. So I'd like to tell you a little bit of a story about Heineken. In 2010, a top nightclub in Mongolia hosted a Heineken promotion. Heineken banners were placed around the dance floor, and they weren't taken down afterwards. Later, the owner of the club rented out the club to a dogfight. Dogfighting is illegal, and it was unfortunate that there were Heineken banners still up in the venue. A picture was taken, this picture, and it looks like Heineken is sponsoring a dogfight. Heineken absolutely wasn't sponsoring a dogfight. But lots of people were very, very angry. As you can see, it says, please share the hell out of this image. Big mistake, Heineken, big mistake. And it went viral, it was shared around, it made a really, really big effect on them and their sales, actually. To this day, they're still correcting this. They found out 18 months after it had happened that it had happened. By that time, it had permeated a lot of the social media spaces. A lot of people had changed their views on Heineken. And this happened in 2010, so they've posted this out in May of this year, and they've been posting it out quite regularly because they need to combat this. And actually combating misinformation is more than just a one-time, hey guys, we didn't do that. Speed is actually really, really important. And that's kind of why I'm telling you this story, because stopping information has 2 aspects, accuracy and speed. Speed is what we lack at the moment, and speed is what we're trying to improve at Full Fact with the tools that we're creating. Full Fact is the UK's independent, non-partisan fact-checking charity. We've been going since 2010, and it's our job to anchor public debate to reality. We've fact-checked the Leveson inquiry, 3 general elections, and 3 referendums. That means we've fact-checked 7 big political events in 7 years, which means I'm very tired. I think also that might make us the most experienced fact-checkers in the world, but I don't have a source for that, so I'd probably be fired if I said that. We have a well-established model of change. In the short term, we give people reliable information so they can make up their own minds on big issues. we link back to all of our primary sources. So it's not that we're asking you to take our word for it. What we're doing is doing the research that you might do if you had the time. Unlike most other fact-checking organizations, we go one step further. We seek to get inaccurate claims corrected also. So our first corrections request took 9 months to make happen, which is a very long 9 months. Now we get it done in a much quicker time, maybe in days or weeks. Actually, how well a correction system works is probably a good measure of how developed a country's news ecosystem is. So have a think about your own. In the medium term, we use the evidence from our fact-checking to diagnose systemic problems that exist in the information space. So we've actually helped government departments in the UK set up internal fact-checking services. Also, we've helped the Office for National Statistics change the way that they publish data. That means that actually, because not every single time that misinformation comes out into the world is it that a journalist has misunderstood something or is purposefully trying to put it in one direction or color it one particular party or another. Sometimes it's just that the data was released in a really stupid way and nobody can understand it. And so actually by going back to the initial data release, you can actually create a lot of clarity around the story. Here's a little bit of a flavor of what we do from other people. If you could please play the video.
There's a panelist tonight called Full Fact. Full Fact is an organisation which specialises in fact-checking claims made by politicians and the media. So the panel had better watch out.
That was David Dimbleby from BBC Question Time. The next one, BBC Question Time is like the premier political show in the UK. The next one is Piers Morgan at breakfast, ITV Breakfast during the EU referendum. And the one after that is Oliver Wright, the Times policy editor. If you could play the other two as well.
With each side of the argument making its claims and counterclaims, how do we tell fact from fiction? Well, this man knows. Will Moy is from Full Fact, an independent fact-checking organisation.
Organisations like Full Fact, when they started off, were a complete culture shock to newsrooms across the country, because, I think you probably admit this, you took quite a militant attitude. If we got something wrong, we would get a complaint, and that complaint would then go to the PCC, as it was then, if it wasn't properly resolved. And at first journalists say, well, these people, why are they questioning it? But actually, over the long run, it's made us all think a little bit harder.
And it's really nice to get feedback like that, to actually hear that being militant about it is actually helpful, is quite big of it. So a lot of this happens in political debate. One person, this is the 2014 European debate between Nick Clegg and Nigel Farage. And at one point, Nigel Farage says 70% of laws are made in the EU, and Nick Clegg from the Liberal Democrats says no, only 7% of laws are made in the EU. This happens quite a lot. What do you do as a voter in that situation? You just shut off. There's nothing you can do apart from go, do the research, come back an hour later, don't really have an answer. This is actually a really difficult thing to answer in a couple of minutes anyway. It depends on what are the laws that you're looking at. Are you counting bylaws? Are you counting laws that are in draft? It's a messy number. But in a world where we're overwhelmed with information like this, it's easy just to shut down. So what we do is give people a way out of the choice between blind faith and blind cynicism. Do you trust everything you hear, or do you distrust everything you hear? Too often also the world is painted in black and white. Campaigners and politicians like to say this is how it is, when actually it's very much shades of grey. A really good example of this is Prime Minister's Questions. Theresa May and Jeremy Corbyn regularly get up and talk about poverty every week. And one of them will say, poverty is going down. Theresa May, the Prime Minister, will say, poverty is decreasing. And Jeremy Corbyn, the opposition leader, will say that actually it's on the rise, it's the highest it's ever been. And the fact is that they're both right. There are two measures of poverty in the country. One's going up, one's going down. Okay, speed up a little bit. So, what we do is try to give people that information in real time. We take our entire team and we put them into TV studios and we do live fact-checking. We pioneered this with ITV and CNN in 2010. And we can do this because we're prepared, because we look at everything that a politician has ever said in the past year. And we know what their pet statistics are, we know what their pet facts are, and we know the ones that they're going to bring out. We do it to good effect. This is the head of news gathering in Sky, who says thanks to us, they can actually do live fact-checking properly. And Ian Dale, who's a presenter at LBC, said, I wish I had you sitting beside me every time I interview a politician. And although we're really proud of the work that we've done, we're very conscious that cloning our team and putting them in every single newsroom isn't really a viable solution. So we started thinking, what are the tools that we can build so that I can give every journalist a fact checker in their pocket? So what I'm going to show you now is very much in alpha and proof of concept, so don't judge it too harshly. But I hope you can see the potential that they have. The first tool is a tool called Live. Live is a live fact-checking tool which has two modes. It identifies claims that have already been fact-checked before, making use of the 7 years of fact-checking that we've already done. Fact-checking organizations around the world are sitting on really fantastic information that's not being used at all. So we spot every single time something that's already been fact-checked has been repeated, like a very specific media monitoring operation. And the second thing it does is it identifies new things that haven't been fact-checked before, but we have good data for. So if you're lucky enough to live in a country that has machine-readable data, for us we have the Office of National Statistics, which is actually working on making their API a lot better. Then we've started exploring whether we can use structured data statistical analysis and NLP basically to parse out a sentence in real time, like crime is rising in London. Figure out what exactly you're referring to. Is it London? Is it 2010? What's the context? Go to the ONS website, find the right data set, and in real time bring back those numbers and give it to a journalist. The other tool that we're building is called Trends. Trends is a monitoring tool. It allows fact checkers to see who is repeating inaccurate information in aggregate, and allows you to target your work for maximum impact. A big part of our job is to stop people repeating claims. And to also quantify, we want to be able to quantify our own effect in the world. So Live at the moment looks like this. If you could play the video. In real time, it pulls the subtitles from TV, the closed captions, and matches every single sentence against our database of fact checks. So like I said, in 7 years, politicians and campaigners repeat themselves a lot. It's like playing whack-a-mole, basically. So this is a demo reel of Prime Minister's questions that I was talking about earlier. It comes with its own problems. The matching isn't always accurate, and the accuracy of the subtitles is actually a problem because it goes out like this into the world. But as speech-to-text will improve, and everyone's working on it, so it will improve at some point, the quality of our system will also improve. We actually use this in this current state. We used it in the recent elections in the UK. We found that even in its earliest stages, it meant that our small team could do so much more. We had freed up our most experienced fact-checkers to actually work on more difficult questions, which is actually really, really important when you're only a team of 11. So instead of looking at what is the population of the UK, we can answer questions like, is the National Health Service in crisis? Which is what actually people really want to know. So this particular claim, there are 10,000 more training places available for nurses. Remember that one, it's inaccurate. The figure actually only refers to the government's ambition for additional places. They haven't actually achieved it yet, but they keep talking about it as if they have achieved it. So if we move on. Oh, no, go back. Oh, could you go back? Sorry, that one. Yep, so this, if you go from Live straight to the second tool, Trends, you can see how many people have been saying this claim and where have they been saying it. So we've seen it 32 times since June 2014, and it aggregates all the different places that we've heard it. Where we're actually looking at the moment is Parliament, everything that everyone says in Parliament, everything that's said on TV, and everything that's said in newspapers. So for this claim specifically, it is mostly something that's being said in Parliament and sometimes goes out into the other world. It also lets us aggregate all the sightings over the last 7 days. So for all the things that we've ever fact-checked, we can see what are the things that are being repeated again most. And this only works because we fact-check day to day. If we weren't a regular fact-checking outfit with editorial output, it wouldn't be as strong. But it means that we can see, in this case, nurses have been using food banks. It's not true, well, it's true in some cases, but there isn't wide-scale evidence of use. It was a big referendum claim, so it shot up during that period, and these are the places that have been saying it. Sometimes it catches things like people quoting it and saying it's wrong, and that's something we need to improve. But I hope you can see how this will allow us to quantify our own effect in the world and actually start measuring, is fact-checking having any difference? Is our corrections work actually making any difference? And it will hopefully be even more powerful when we move on to the next stage. My favorite example of this in action is there's a claim that there's a £38 billion black hole in the defense budget, and we've asked everyone, and there's no evidence for this claim whatsoever. So we looked at the system, and it turns out that more than half of those claims come from one man, and it's one man called Frederick Forsyth. So if we just sit down with Frederick and tell him to stop, we get rid of most of those claims in the real world. So actually it's about targeting our own interventions more smartly. Okay. So, what we're doing, a full fact, is, because we're a charity, we're doing this for the public benefit, we're doing this for other fact checkers around the world, so we are working in collaboration with 2 other fact checking organizations, Africa Check and Chequiado. Chequiado works in Argentina, and Africa Check works across 4 different countries in Africa. All of these fact checking organizations around the world don't have resource, they don't have tech skills, they're small teams, and they are overwhelmed with people asking for their time. And they all want to work on the hard questions but end up answering the easy ones because they can at least get something out. So whatever we're building in an open, modular, and free way for all the fact checkers around the world. These are the 6 principles that we have as we go. Open roadmaps, open standards, open evaluation, thinking global, which is why we're starting also thinking about the Spanish-speaking world, shared systems, and for public benefit. We're also experimenting. At the moment, we're going to be focusing on fact-checkers and journalists. We're also experimenting with what we might give to the public further down the line. At the moment, we're serving the public through fact-checkers and journalists. I'm not convinced that everybody wants to be corrected on Twitter all the time by a full fact bot. But I think there is a place to start experimenting with the different tools and products that we can start giving to the public that might actually improve the political ecosystem a little bit. So one of my favorite experiments we did was at a Facebook hackathon where we worked with the Facebook Live team to integrate live fact-checking. So you remember that 10,000 training places for nurses claim? This is maybe what it could have looked like if it was happening in real time.
Her government said removing funding for nurses' bursaries would create an extra 10,000 training places in this parliament. Has this target been met?
Prime Minister, there are 10,000 more training places available for nurses in the NHS, but the Right Honourable Gentleman talks about the amount of money that is being spent on the National Health Service. It is this Conservative government that is putting the extra funding into the NHS, and I remind the Right Honourable Gentleman that we are spending 1.3 billion more on the NHS this year than Labour planned to do if they'd won the election.
Mr. Speaker, my questions were about the social service.
Thank you.
Wow. I mean, I'm speechless. Absolutely fantastic. You are doing a hell of a good job. I mean, a very good job indeed. All right, dear audience, any fake questions, real questions, alternative facts questions, any questions, please. Now it's time. Off you go there, young gentlemen.
can you be present in the parliament during their discussions?
Yeah, we're trying to. They just won't let us in.
With the red card and the green card. Yeah, the question would be, you mentioned that the way that maybe newspapers or governments or whatever retract their incorrect facts when you point it out, it's a measure of how well things are functioning. Mm-hmm. Have you thought of giving kind of a certificate of having some, maybe it's easier with the media, that they are fact-checked or they are more accurate than other media sources? And of course you cannot be paid by them to offer that service, but have you thought of, maybe if you go to the BBC website, you have your symbol as being approved by you somehow, and you have to keep reviewing their behavior.
Yeah. Definitely, it's so the kind of two things there. One is whether the corrections work that's being done. We could have a leaderboard of here are the best people and the best corrections. Definitely something like that could exist. The reason why we don't do that is because we're a tiny team and we have to really focus on the things that we think will make a big impact. If we were more, we would probably actually end up going down that route. The second thing, I guess, that you mentioned is specifically around verifying news organizations, saying actually these guys do a good job and regularly checking them. I think that's a bit harder, especially for larger organizations. For example, the BBC does some really great reporting and some really shit reporting. And actually you have to be very, very granular in order to find every single one. So actually the resource it would take to do that would be huge. But what we have done is work with the BBC, to take this example, to improve the way that they actually talk about statistics. So in the UK, there was the big EU referendum claim that we send 350 million a week to the EU. We can spend that money on the National Health Service instead. That was one of the big claims of the EU referendum. Every single time they repeated it on air, they were giving it more fire, more air to burn. And so we've actually worked with them to change the rules for how they actually talk about statistics now. So whenever the UK Statistics Authority, which is the watchdog for all statistics, comes out and says, this is wrong, don't use the statistics, the BBC is now obliged to say every single time they mention that fact, that also the UK Statistics Authority says that this is not an okay statistic, by the way. So at least it anchors that statistics in a better way. So we are kind of finding different levers than ratings. We're trying to find better ways of reporting, I guess, to improve the ecosystem.
All right, any other questions on there, please?
I have just a short one, but how do you know that a fact is a fact? How do you choose your channel of trust?
We focus on things that have statistics as a starting point, like national statistics are a good place to go, things that have been verified by multiple experts. Ultimately, there is no facts, there is no one fact, or there is no one group of things that I can tell you is a fact. A lot of our job isn't to say this is right or wrong. A lot of our job is to say, here is the thing that everyone's talking about, here is the complexity, here is the best available information that we have in the world about this. It's up to you to make your own mind about it. So it's not us telling you yes, no, maybe sometimes. It's kind of more colouring it in, giving you a bit more contouring and shape instead of saying yes, no.
All right, any other questions? If not, thank you, Mevan, for a wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. All right, we are going down the same road, think a little bit deeper about the hybrid threats and cybersecurity. So Jamie Davis was already on the podium in the morning session in the panel, and because the guy is a rugby player and he demanded to be here second time, I couldn't say no, because he's a tough guy. But nevertheless, I will shortly introduce Jamie again for those who were not here in the morning. So he is the deputy editor of the telecoms, having telecoms.com, having moved over from producing conferences covering the cloud and virtualization sectors for the parent company Informa. Jamie brings with him a strong understanding of the current trends affecting the enterprise communication world, as well as the insight into what makes companies tick, and a fresh take on how to communicate all this to the outside world. So Jamie, please, stage is all yours.
Have you got the bios for the other two? Because I haven't actually got them. The bio. So we got Jana. What have we got? I haven't actually got the biographies for the other two speakers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Well, actually, guys, if you want to come up and introduce yourself, that might be a bit of the easier way to do it. I can do it. Sure. All right, so we have do you want to say a couple of words about yourselves?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Timo Ahmaki. I'm running for data security services, so looking mostly into the enterprise security sector, listed in Nordic.
All right, so here we have a young Rinne, who is a professor at Aalto University, and he is also works as a vice president of cybersecurity in MultiCloud PLC, and he's been working with security issues more than 20 years already. And he has a profound understanding of the global threat landscape, combined with the courage to address the most complex issues. And he's one of the guys who's most likely in every single week in the Finnish TV is interviewed by either the YLE or the MTV3. So Jarno, welcome.
Thank you very much.
And then we have Timo Ahmaki, who is the head of portfolio development from data security services. And Timo is going in charge of the Timo has been in the business for more than 20 years in international portfolio development, telecom and cybersecurity industries. And before joining Tieto, Timo was CTO for international software companies specializing in telecom operations and business support infrastructure. So, gentlemen, off you go.
Well, I think this is a good presentation to follow on from as well, actually, because this is partly what we're going to be talking about is sort of a lot of change. And just as, just to put it out there, I am a journalist, but I am one of the ones you can trust. So that's fine. But yeah, so what we're going to be talking about is the threats that are available in the digital economy. And there's a bit doom and gloom, but it's something that we will have to think about, even if we don't particularly want to. So just to kick things off, nice open question. How much of a threat is the internet? Who wants to kick it off?
Well, if I may start, actually I was thinking it was very good keynote what we just heard. And actually, I would like to have one question to the audience, that when we are talking about the fake news, is that cybersecurity or not? Because, what do you think?
Yes, it is.
I fully agree, because especially in the Western world, like in Finland, UK, and many other countries, we are very much concentrating when we are talking about these issues. There's like a cyber-technical approach to these issues. We are talking about the breaches, we are talking about the leaks, and very technological issues. And probably now we are going to talk about how we protect our IoT devices or digital services. Yes, that's a very important part of it. But I have been following and doing the research in this area for many, many years, maybe too many years. But I have noticed that I am more and more concentrating and emphasizing also the importance of the cyber-psychological approach to these issues. And I have military background, ex-officer, and I would say that the biggest cyber battles or internet battles will be fought over our thoughts, our values, our images. And especially in the Western thinking, these approaches are not so much discussed. And I think it's very important to understand how much social media, fake news, different psychological operations, which we see also at the moment in Finland, how much we should understand that more, and also how we can prepare to those kind of, not only cyber-technical, but cyber-psychological issues.
I think you're spot on there. I think it's a complete change in mindset and the way we approach not only news, but the way we sort of manage our lives. I mean, do you feel that we're actually sort of ready for it?
Well, I think it is a bit of a return to the common sense, right? As an industry, cybersecurity has been kind of carried away a bit, looking at the nitty-gritty, interesting technical stuff. And as a result, some of the basic stuff we have just sort of neglected. You know, brush your teeth, eat your spinach, audit your firewalls, you know, the kind of basic things. And I think, are we ready for it? Well, it depends on who's ready for it. As we heard in the previous presentation, I think the kind of the influencing and the sort of information manipulation that's going on, I think the big public probably is a little behind the game there. I think in enterprises, at least there's a lot of talk about addressing the human factor of cybersecurity and kind of maybe putting a little less emphasis on the technology. Is it really happening? Not yet. Are we ready for it? I think we're starting to do that.
Because I mean, that's one of the big bugbears for when I look at the industry. It's people, I mean, enterprises themselves aren't actually making an effort to educate people on the security side of things. Moving slightly away from fake news. I mean, but you feel your customers are actually making an effort to educate their customers on what the threats are?
Well, there's a lot of talk about it. Okay. I wouldn't say it's happening en masse yet. It's not happening enough. There's a lot of talk about it, which is a good start. Right?
Yeah.
I think one of the problems, just like in the social media space, also in the enterprise space, it's very complex. If we look at sort of the cloud, you know, all these ecosystems that we have in the cloud, they're effectively trust networks, right? You try and go and ask Amazon, who's the subcontractor who's installing servers in their data centers, and you will get a very polite answer saying, none of your effing business. So you end up implicitly trusting a long chain of contractors in there. And I think, you know, nobody knows whether they're trustworthy or not. I think that's the enterprise problem of it. And it is a mirror image of what's happening in social media. Like, people like likes. And then finally, what's the original source of the truth?
Okay. One thing what I would like to say, because I think in the audience also many people are attending or have attended many seminars and conferences, and I really know the feeling that usually they are excellent speakers, keynotes, talking about the innovations, next phase of the technology, and then comes this security person to the stage and start talking about the threats and risks, and the whole atmosphere goes down. And I'm the security person, and I would not like to have that kind of negative label on me, because as a starting point, security, it's a positive issue when it is taken properly care of. And I think we often forget, talking about the physical security or cyber security, digital security, this is a basic need for us, every human. And then on the other hand, when we are thinking about the internet, when we are talking about digitalization, technology, we should really keep in mind that the security is an enabler. A necessity, yes, but especially the enabler. I was actually last Friday in Tallinn talking to the head of states of the European Union, and Emmanuel Macron and Angela Merkel and all the others were listening. And I think one of my key points to them, as to you here today, is that we should not only think about cybersecurity or security from the threats and risks perspective. It's an enabler. And especially now when EU is trying to be the global leader in next phase technologies by 2025 globally, we should really understand technology, security as an enabler here. But then, of course, we really have to understand the threats and risks as well. And especially when we are protecting our data. What we are in the research world, in the academia talking at the moment, is not so much anymore only that someone comes and steals your data, or someone comes into your system, breaches into your system and deletes your data, but the manipulation of the data. So we will actually, like we were just saying, people will lose trust on this information, what is already in different systems. And I think this integrity or honesty in a way, what we have in data, that will be a key question when we are talking about the security from trust point of view in the coming years.
I mean, I think one interesting angle there when you said, you mentioned the physical world. And when we go to conferences on digitalization or whatever, there's a lot to talk about how the distinction of the physical world and the digital world is disappearing. Like everything is digital, everything is physical, and they get mixed. And when you start talking about security, suddenly you put the wall in there, and here's cyber, and here's physical, and they have nothing to do with each other. We can't live like that. Fully agree.
Yeah. But I mean, this is one of the things that I found sort of quite a lot, and I don't know whether it's restricted to specifically the UK, because that's mainly where I do most of my writing. But security seems to be a lot of PR rhetoric. You know, you see pretty much every major CEO saying it's the top of the agenda. You see pretty much every politician saying it's the most important thing moving forward. But are you guys seeing any evidence that, you know, words are actually coming into action?
Well, as mentioned, partly yes, partly no. In a very short way, we did a very large research last year here in Finland concerning about this was what the Prime Minister's office, what is the current cybersecurity situation in Finland and what we have especially improved. And one of the key findings what we had, and I think the same applies to more or less every company, is that this is a leadership issue. Primarily, cybersecurity is a strategic leadership issue and needs and requires strategic commitment both in the society and both in the companies. And when there is not enough political or leadership commitment on these issues, there can never be a good cybersecurity.
So do you think that security should be led from the governments?
That's one actor, absolutely. Government is one actor, but also I see in many companies, because I work also in the business life, that usually the strategic understanding on these issues in the board level, it's not enough at the moment. It should be much more. And it should be also from the cyber point of view, we should understand better the business world. So they can't be, like you said, that I fully agree that we can't have any more like a cyber security and then physical security. Probably we will get rid of this term cybersecurity in near future. We just talk about security where the cyber issues and the digital issues are just integral part of it. And the same applies for the leadership, absolutely.
Because I think that's part of, it is this shift from, you know, moving offline and more of our lives are becoming online. So I just don't think we've got to grips with that yet. And obviously this is a team of part of the world that you specialise in. So you look after the security portfolio, so you're helping clients protect themselves. But I'm assuming you look in for the big threats that are coming up as well. So I mean, where are the new threats emerging?
Well, I think recently when, like I said, as an industry, we're always, like every industry, I guess, it's always fascinated by the new. Yeah, there's a lot of talk about in the industry about nation-state actors and, you know, all of this fancy stuff that's going on. If you look at some of the, I would dare to say all of them, let's say some of the biggest data breaches this year, they've been really like second-grade school book examples of how you hack a company. It's like very basic stuff. Like there's a huge amount of noise about WannaCry and how it was based on a NSA exploit. But everything in WannaCry was known in 2007. It's like tried and true technology. It's just that we got lazy. Because we hadn't seen that type of an attack in 10 years, so nobody was bothering. And then suddenly somebody said, hey, let's try this again. And it worked, right? Fiercely well. So I think there's like two things. I think there's like, we have to go back to basic hygiene. Just very basic thing. When I look at like 9 out of 10 companies in my region, they don't have the basic stuff under control. I mean, some of them have, some of them don't. And then, if you really are an organization that has to worry about nation-state actors or, you know, something like that, fine. Then there's that. But instead of kind of chasing the new and chasing the, you know, the technology fancy, I think at the moment we're at a stage where we need to take a step back and say, okay, no, why are we doing this? And a lot of it is about the people. About kind of going back to the people and making sure people understand. I mean, where do most attacks to companies come from? 81% of all company or enterprise breaches originate from email. You receive an email, you click on the link, and boom, you're out. There's nothing a piece of fancy technology can do there.
So sort of walking before you can actually start running.
Well, yeah.
Because I think that's a very important message. And if there would be one takeaway from this panel, it would be that do your basic issues right. Because security is always, as you know, is a cultural issue. And to be honest, it takes time to change the culture. And I would say that in a way, when we are talking about the cybersecurity or this digital security, it's just the dawn of this era in a way. We are just like learning to do what or how to behave in the internet, in the digital world, from the fake news point of view, from the cybersecurity, from the technical, psychological point of view. It takes a little bit of time. But I would say, and I am not overestimating this at all, that for example, if the Nordic companies, each member in each company would do and know the basics, more or less 90% of the problems that we are having at the moment would go away. Basics right.
So if the basics are a huge issue now, and we can't protect our own emails, how on earth are we going to get by when we've got billions of devices coming online in an IoT world and billions of gateways to potentially corrupt a network or steal your bank accounts? I mean, isn't that not one thing from a cultural side and from a technology side that scares you a little bit?
Well, a little bit, I have to say, yes, because always when there are good issues, some malicious actors may do some other issues in the same reality. I think one of the key issues is, of course, we need these technological solutions as well, and they need to be simple enough that people will use them. But from my point of view, I would say that security is primarily it's a matter of attitude. And our attitude must be right when we are creating this trusted Nordic or trusted European cyberspace. And everybody must know and act upon their responsibility.
Okay. And from the technical side?
I don't know from a technical side, but when I think about IoT and kind of the problems in IoT, and especially in the home environment, so people are not securing their webcams and their DVRs. Let's go back to 2000, right? And VCRs. It was a common joke that everybody's VCR was showing 12 noon with a blinking red light, right? That's what it is, and we all laugh at it right now. You know, maybe 17 years on, we all laugh at everybody having default passwords in their webcams and their DVRs. It's exactly the same thing. It's like, what's the benefit from me changing the password in my webcam? Right? Yeah, it may be hacked, but so what? I have nothing to hide. Plus, if it's used to DDoS some other company, none of my problem. So I think we need to get a little bit like, okay, make it easier, because frankly, it's pretty difficult right now to do in most cases. But also, like, you know, again, get some movement into the awareness and understanding. And I think it's the same thing across the board when we talk about digital, because people kind of treat the cyberspace differently from the physical space. Like, you don't trust everybody in this room. Why would you trust everybody in this room when you go to Twitter or Facebook or whatever? So I think we need to kind of get that right. And then technically, yes, you need to put in, you know, there's already solutions that will monitor your home network and alert you if there are new devices coming into the network that you don't know about. But then what? So I think it requires a little bit of maturity in the marketing people, in people selling those gadgets.
I think you're spot on there, and I think it's a phrase I've heard a couple of times today, actually. And I think there was a presentation earlier on, actually, where I think the quote was, everything that can be digitized should be digitized. And I think that is partly the issue that we're facing with.
Well, that's something what we keep repeating here in Finland also. Everything that can be digitized will be digitized. Probably yes, but is that wise? For example, are there some areas in business or in society which should not be digitized? I would say yes. For example, voting, elections. What we have seen already in the world, how different nation states, certain nation states are trying to affect elections. I would say that especially at this moment, I would stick with this paper and pen principle when we are talking about elections. Maybe that is one area that we should not digitize. I don't usually like that when we have these like common phrases that everybody comes to the conferences and keep repeating that everything that can be digitalized or technology will change everything. Is it really so? I have to say that according to my experience on these issues, this gives me more and more courage to ask simple questions. What is actually security in 2017? And when I'm thinking about the future of the security, for example, cybersecurity in the whole Europe, I would say that the main question is not how to strengthen security, but how to strengthen trust. The trust is here the key word. And if we lose trust on the digital services or whatever will be digitized, we will lose the good things about them.
Okay. So moving on from what you just said there, Jan, a tricky one over here, Timo. How do you define security?
It is a tricky one.
Or how do you define secure?
Yeah, so I think in today's world, I would define secure more as resilient, right? Because it is a bit of a truism in the security industry that everything and everybody will be breached sooner or later. If you haven't yet, you will be. Trust me, it will happen. The adversaries have an infinite amount of time and resource in their hands, and kind of it's just going to happen. But resilience, like when Jarno was talking about society, like you can't prevent outside influence to society. You can harden your systems, but then the adversary will use Facebook and Twitter to shake the foundations of your society. That's of course fact-checking is one thing, but you can't fact-check everything. But you have to build a little more resilience in that. When one part of it fails, the rest of it stays up and running. And the same goes for industries and companies. If you get breached from one place, you isolate it and you move on. You fix it, you move on. And the same thing, even more goes for society. And elections are, I think, one very good example is that, if you breach the election, that's pretty much game over. So maybe that's one of the parts where...
There's one exception I have thought, because I have excellent hacker friends here in Finland. And when we change our voting system to the e-voting system, I am going to get 100% support from the people. Because I know these good hackers, and probably they will manipulate the result in that way. Well, that was a joke.
So wasn't it recently? I think it was an IEEE paper or something where they said that that the three key sort of requirements for an e-voting system is that you have to be able to verify a correct result when the adversary writes your program, administers your system, and runs your country. That's the three requirements. When these requirements can be met, you're resilient enough to cope with e-voting. I mean, just an example, as an example, but on a society level, because we're talking about things. I mean, if somebody breaches a big organization and the organization goes out of business, big deal.
So you're okay with the fact that e-voting might be breached? I mean, you say
no. Well, that's one of the things I'm probably not okay with. That's what I was trying to say, is that if a corporation is breached and goes out of business, hey, it happens. Corporations come and go anyway. If somebody breaches an election system and puts the wrong people in to run the country, that's kind of a big deal.
Absolutely. And if I may continue, I fully agree that probably when we talk about the future of the security, it's more about resilience. When something happens, how you act in that phase. But I would separate also that there is this functional aspect, what we can do at that moment. Do we have plan B? what kind of different systems we have. If we lose the electricity, will we have some kind of extra generator outside of the MESSUKESKUS and so on. But then I would especially emphasize this mental resilience with this issue, what we should say, because then you have lost the game. You have lost the psychological part of this game. You really have to be agile, you really have to be always ready to communicate in different channels when something bad or good happens. And I think the importance of the communications will be more and more important also from the security point of view.
So we're talking a lot about culture and resilience and the idea of communications. Does that not mean the idea of trying to be 100% secure is dangerous? You know, as soon as you think you're 100% secure, you've lost the game.
Yeah, if you really believe in that, then you probably lost it. Because meaning that if you sort of build a technical solution and you believe that you're 100% secure, and then you forget the rest because you're 100% secure, you know, then probably you have a problem. So I think that, you know, make no mistake. I mean, I'm selling security services for a living, so I want people to buy also technical security. You know, I'm happy to sell some, but what I'm saying is that alone will not be sufficient.
Yeah, and of course we have to understand the context. When I'm thinking about what is the key features when we are talking about today's security environment, both digital and physical, I would say that three main features are speed of change, how fast things are changing. Second is that I would describe the current security environment unpredictable instability. That's the new normal, as my opinion. And the third one is complexity. And this complexity will increase. And what will really get me angry, if you want to get me angry, you can say to me that, yes, my company can do this security Q1, and then we can forget the security for the rest of the year. No, then you have really lost the game. You really have to follow the situation. You really have to understand the threats and risks and opportunities, and you really have to develop your preparedness all the time if you want to keep up with speed.
And I think there's the, like you mentioned earlier about kind of the psychological side and again the human side. And I think one part of that is awareness, both in the enterprise setup and also kind of in a broader setup. So are people sort of really aware of these things? Because in many enterprises, it's a once-a-year thing. You watch a video, you answer a quiz, and then, you know, the company gets a checkbox in an audit report saying everybody's trained for security. And then 11 months, you know, nobody cares about anything and life goes on. But rather kind of start looking at it from the point of view that learning is a process, it's not an event, right? And I think preparedness comes from practice, right? In you know, I've been doing some sports which are like potentially life-threatening, and there you kind of you practice when things going wrong, so that you can do things. And how many companies actually do a breach exercise, even annual, not to mention more often. And I think that kind of somehow we would have to then also mirror that to the rest of the society. And again, being aware of fake news or influencing or some other threats is kind of key. But it's very difficult because people don't want to hear about it. It's like, ooh, I don't want to hear about the bad stuff. I only want to hear about the good stuff. So how do we communicate it in a positive way, like as an enabler?
So I guess one thing I do want to lead on to, folks, I think we're running a little bit short on time, is more on the sort of the artificial intelligence side of things as well, because I think that is absolutely critical in terms of security moving forward. And obviously it's very much in its baby days at the moment. It's got a lot of growth to do. Are we able to secure ourselves right now? You're talking about awareness, about agility, about predictability. Security seems small. Are we actually able to do it, or are we going to have a couple of years of some real pain, a lot of breaches, until AI comes through to the mainstream?
Until AI comes to the mainstream, right? Well, I think that obviously, again, like said, it's not that difficult. It's more about will. And I think artificial intelligence in the security field is one of these silver bullets again. Like, okay, we have this XYZ, that's machine learning and artificial intelligence, and whatever buzzword you wanna put it there, and that will solve all the problems, and you no longer need humans to monitor your security.
Well, not so much about not having humans, but if you look at most security teams are understaffed. They can't monitor the entire perimeter 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah, well, the amount of data is a problem for security monitoring, yes. On an average customer, we get like 20 billion events a month out of the system, and you can't have a human monitor that, so you have to have some sort of a filter. Yeah, that's one part of it. But again, the adversary is very resourceful, very innovative, and usually extremely competent, right? And guess what? They can buy exactly the same stuff we can buy and test their methods against it. So you can't kind of rely on that only. So it becomes a combination. More breaches than we do is not for the lack of trying, right? It is there. So I think the tools are there.
If they are agile and innovative, so should we who defend against them. And I think one of the challenges in this cybersecurity field that we are maybe a little bit too much concentrating on those cyber hostilities or on what we have seen or experienced already. Because in that way we are always one step behind. And I think what I'm encouraging my excellent students, for example, at the university, you really have to try at least to foresee what is the next wave or the next phase of the threats and risks, and we should be more prepared to them, because otherwise we are always one step behind. And one thing what I like to also bring up here, because in my work I think about very much about the technology, the future of it, security of it, and really fast when I'm having these kind of thoughts in my head, I start to think about the ethical issues. And this is not so much discussed in the societies, in the world at the moment. And we are now emphasizing, like in the latest EU's cybersecurity strategy, the security by design principle, privacy by design principle. But I would say that we should start thinking about adding the ethics by design principle also. Because I think that in the near future, whenever that is, we are in the situation that we are not anymore asking what the machines can do or cannot do. It's more about what we are letting them to do. And I think that is something that I really hope that not only the professors in the small groups in the universities discuss about these issues. This concerns more or less the whole humanity.
Okay, well we just had a prompt a couple of minutes ago just to sort of wrap things up, so I'm just going to ask one final question for both of you. What is the scariest thing for you about where we are in the digital community, the routes we're heading down, and the sort of the biggest fear in terms of the security world?
I think probably for me the scariest things currently are not sort of in the space of enterprises. Like I said, enterprises are enterprises. I'm more looking into the society as a whole at the moment, and for example in Finland, for better or for worse, we have a government who is very eager to push all sorts of stuff, through the pipeline. Sometimes you can argue that it's not all thought through very, very well. And
I don't think that you're alone in Finland.
No, yeah, well, I think different countries, different styles, but yeah. And of course, we should look for opportunities to make things more efficient, and we should look for things to make things more cost efficient, and all of that. But at the same time, I'm afraid that with the current speed that we want to introduce new stuff, we are forgetting a little bit some of these nasty things like security.
And I think electronic voting is one of those. It's just the tip of the iceberg, but it's probably the most crucial part of democracy. And you know, rushing e-voting just because it's new and flashy or something similar into the government that's what I'm scared of.
So doing it because we can, not necessarily because we should.
Yeah, more or less.
Well, I have to say that I am not so scared or frightened when I'm thinking about the future. No, we will have problems. We will have big challenges when we are thinking about the future of the technology and the digitalization, and especially the security of it. But I think this is a positive issue. And I think one of the key issues, like he's mentioned here many times, and once more, sorry, is that we have to raise the general awareness on these issues.
Okay. Well, we have been prodded a few times down in the corner, so we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you very much.
Please stay on the second stage. I think that there might be some questions here. Any questions from the audience? So please, I have one question actually, because it's always been bothering me a little bit in this security thing, is that you are always the party that's trying to build a wall, that, you know, the bad guys are not coming in, and then you have to strengthen the wall and, you know, that type of things. But what I'm kind of thinking is that, okay, usually it is you made a counterattack to make sure that that guy is not trying again. Why we are not, you know, do like that? So if we are under any cyber threat coming in, why we are just defending, why we are not counter-attacking them and try to take them away so that they're not attacking again?
Well, I think one of the big issues there is you can't build a wall anymore.
Yeah.
You know, think about one of the biggest trends in the technology industry is mobility. And I've been guilty of it today. I haven't told my IT department that I'm in Helsinki. Now, I have accessed my emails, I've gone in, I've logged stories, I've done quite a lot of things. So I've created a little rabbit hole underneath the perimeter. Yeah, so I am basically the bad guy here. But so I don't think, until you actually get this idea of shadow IT out of the system completely, you can't stop pushing back. Because, like you guys rightly said, basically in this situation, I am in the wrong completely here. So, you know, I'm causing more issues than I am solutions.
You want to take the counter-attack part?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so counter-attacks are discussed a lot in the industry. Should we or should we not? And it's not that simple. There's a lot of issues, most of which are ethical, right? So I think that at the moment I would say, you know, don't do it. I know some people are doing it, and I know that, you know, law enforcement is doing it, and that's, I guess, fine, it's their job. But like, as a company, I get breached, and then I go on a counter-strike and hack somebody's systems and take them off the planet. There's all sorts of things that can go wrong. Not all of them technical. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering that might be kind of public-private partnership in that sense, because we do all know that in the public sector we probably don't have all the funding and all the necessary means to do that. But if we combine the effort from the private sector together with the public sector, for example, if one country is under attack, any hybrid threat, cyber, you know, stuff, if they pool the resources that they have, they can fight back. You know?
Yeah, but I think that if something is resilient, it is the attacker, because, you know, you just I mean, it's maybe a bad analogy, but in some ways you can compare it to, you know, some of the biggest militaries in this world trying to fight the terrorist organizations, which are unorganized, decentralized, very, very resilient. So you take out one node and there's a million other nodes, and that one node will pop up somewhere else. So it's really like a global whack-a-mole. And if you try to go out, I mean, you have to be very, very, very certain that you're going after the mainland, right? Because otherwise you're just hitting the minions and and you're just giving away the game. So I think I understand that logic from the high vantage point of, let's punish them. But I think in this case, it's not going to work.
I think another point there is that it's easy to try and tackle the big guys, but then you look at 91, I don't know the figures off the top of my head, but a large number of breaches are from guys trying to prove themselves. So these guys that haven't appeared on anyone's register before, no one knows who they are. They could be a 16, 17-year-old kid sitting in their mum's bedroom, just hacking away on a laptop. It's, these guys don't exist on any map. So how do you find someone who's never appeared before? It's an impossible game.
All right. Okay, good. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. All right, so last but not least, we are entering into the final phase of this track, and we are going to talk about a little bit how the cloud and IoT are shifting data center focus to the edge. And our distinguished speaker, the last speaker for today is Maria de Lourdes Carvalho, and he is Vice President of Data Center and Industrial Solutions Europe from Schneider Electric. And she was appointed she was appointed this year as the head of the Data Center and Industrial Solutions Business Development for Europe. She and her team are responsible for developing business and data center and industrial applications in the Europe region by planning the deployment and execution of sales strategies and initiatives with a strong focus on high quality levels of customer service and satisfaction. Prior to this position, she was for almost 7 years Vice President for the IT business of Schneider Electric in Portugal, managing a pre-sales, sales and sales service organization with a strong expertise in design, build and service data center solutions. Maria de Lourdes has acquired 20 years of experience in solutions for both the IT and electrical world, proven through the number of the references implemented in several public and private sectors. Maria has a background in electronics and telecom as an engineer and a degree in computing management. Maria, it's a pleasure to have you here today. Off you go, the stage is yours.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Just take okay.
Shall I connect? Maybe. Okay, so good afternoon to all of you. So my name is Maria de Lourdes, and I'm very pleased to be here to share the Schneider view about how cloud and IoT is shifting the data center focus into the edge. It's the last presentation, I know, so it means that the few of you being in the room are really interested in the topic, which is a big responsibility for me on delivering the message, the quality of the message that I'm bringing. So the emergence of trends such as big data, IoT, cloud, IoT are in fact together with the wider cloud hybrid environment are creating a three-tier data center architecture that is developing. So this network is composed by the cloud scale data center, the regional facilities, and also what we call the local data centers or edge data centers. So the historic idea that the server rooms or the closets are different, wiring closets are different from the data center is becoming relevant. And the businesses that are operating on the hybrid computing environment are realizing how important are the local edge to the availability. So we are in a digital area, and we see a world that is always on. So always on in the way that they meet the needs, of the highest notion to access the goods and the service. Highest, always on to be the solid and reliable foundation of the digital transformation of the business. And therefore, our mission, Schneider mission, is to empower the digital transformation of our customers by ensuring the critical network systems and processes are highly available and resilient. Yes, we are living in a world that is becoming smarter. Everything is becoming smarter. So the cities are becoming smarter, data centers are becoming smarter, the electricity grid is becoming smarter, the communication technology is becoming smarter. So it's not a surprise for us to see that the digital traffic is expanding exponentially. So by growing year after year, 23%. And the predictions of some surveys tell us that by 2018, we may see 8.6 zettabytes of IP traffic. It's a lot of zeros, by the way, 21 zeros in here. This growth, I think we all know, but just to recapture or to remind, is driven by the number of connected users in the Internet of Things. And we see billions of users in the Internet. We see more and more billions of devices being connected to the network. And we see that millions of videos are being viewed per minute. And if we think about the plane, the number of sensors that are in fact in that plane tells us that each flight per hour can generate 40 terabytes of data to be transmitted. So more and more, the reliance, all this data will be processed in computing in data centers, and the reliance on the data center is increasing and is driven by what we consider 4 major trends. Excuse me. From one side, we have digital traffic. And so on the bottom of the slide, you see the entities that are reporting this data. That, by the way, for example, Cisco is predicting that the global data center IP traffic will be 3 times more in the next 5 years. Then a second trend is the Internet of Things. I talked about it already. More than 20 billion connected devices by 2020. And now there is another topic very important, which is data sovereignty. So the European Union is planning or is planned to fine the companies by 4% of their revenues if they are not complying with the data protection regulation. So this is another trend. And finally, the edge computing. According to IDC, 40% of the IoT data will be stored, processed, analyzed, and acted upon on the edge, at the edge. So, and we have seen this is causing a lot of growth and moving from the enterprise into the cloud. So the forecast has been increasing in terms of the cloud, or spending on the cloud architecture. We see the number of cloud providers increasing. The enterprise, the percentage of adoptions of enterprise into the cloud has been growing. And in fact, the centralized cloud was conceived initially for this type of applications, email or payroll or Facebook. In fact, an email doesn't need to be delivered instantly. A video or picture could wait until be posted in the Facebook. So those are typical applications that can easily stay in the cloud. In the recent history, not 2-3 years ago, we have seen the dialogues and directions of the industry moving rapidly everything to the cloud. On the IT perspective and facilities point of view, we see a lot of build-outs that were paused, that were delayed, and a lot of third-party off-premises were moving into the cloud and cloud data centers. So sectors like we never considered, like the military, like municipalities, like healthcare, they all moved into the cloud. Recently, we are seeing an opposite movement. So, in terms of shifting back by creating a more decentralized hybrid computing systems. Microsoft states that hyperscale data center strategy is not enough, and they are creating what they call the cloudlets, which is more what from 1 to 10 servers that they are being creating across their footprint. Dropbox has been pulled out from the public cloud of Amazon, and they are moving into their own private cloud. And Netflix is shutting down all their data centers by having, together with what they called Open Connect program, into the ISP colo and telco providers, so they can, in their cloud, so they can distribute the bandwidth highest content to the locals where the end users are. So the centralized cloud network architecture was not optimizing to the speed. Why? Think about activities like the gaming, like the self-drive car, or in the hospitals, surgery. Taking the example of a self-drive car. A self-drive car generates approximately 1 giga of data per minute. In this data, there is relevant information and key information very important for simple decisions like for the car to change direction, to stop in a stop sign, and things like that. Obviously, this information needs to be ready immediately, otherwise the car won't move. That's why we say that those activities are really sensitive to the latency, they are sensitive to the limited bandwidth, and they are sensitive to the regulations. And at the moment, the cloud data centers are not, these applications cannot be in the cloud data centers, in our opinion, for these reasons. So we are seeing a new ecosystem, then we are seeing a new ecosystem of hybrid architectures. So from one side, we see the centralized cloud, where massive computing storage is still there, being processed. But there are some applications, like the examples I give in my previous slide, that needs to be regionalized if really needs to be located closer to the user, or localized at the edge as there is a need to be, the data needs to be consumed at the point. Okay. So just to summarize, so we see in fact a 3-tier type of data center: the centralized cloud data center, the regional data centers, and the localized edge. And the business operating in the hybrid computing model, they are seeing the localized and micro data centers as key for their availability achievements. Another illustration about how local edge computing can provide low latency bridging between the centralized cloud until the regional or the localized, as I mentioned, with some specific examples. Either is to store and deliver high bandwidth contents to users or provide significant local computing power. Okay? So, but we can further segment the local edge. So, in a way that in the local edge we have local processing, we have consolidated prioritized data, content deliver, but when it comes to the content delivery in the 5G network, then we can have what we call the local telco. Okay, so and if it's the case of the industrial applications where we need local processing or automation, that's what we call local industrial edge. So those are the segments around the local edge. So in addition to the reduced latencies, the CIOs are having other challenges when deploying the edge. So the new data centers of the future, they need to attend to these three main challenges. From one side, they have to reduce costs and the complexity of deployment. They need to manage operating risks, and they need to be capable of reducing the downtime. In terms of costs reduction and complexity, they need to be modular. They need to be modular so we can have flexibility, we can build on scale, and provide several levels of resilience based on the customer needs. In terms of operating risk, we see those future data centers more automatized in a way that they eliminate the risk of human error. So now I'm spending the last slide. I think I'm closing a little bit earlier than the time by talking about EcoStruxure. EcoStruxure is a name of Schneider Electric. And is an example that we came up after our digital transformation strategy. So what is EcoStruxure? It's our IoT. What this means as the EcoStruxure. I would like just to spend some 1 minute here in this slide, just to set the ground when we talk about data centers, we have in mind three main blocks. This is an example of a data center. So we have the building part, we have the IT domain, and we have the power domain. Each one of the domains, they have associated products. Just keep this in mind. Those products is what we call in the three layers of the EcoStruxure, the connected products. So because the architecture, EcoStruxure, is interoperable, so we have a layer that interacts with the connected products called edge control. And a third layer was incremented where we have the applications, the analytics and the services. So this is EcoStruxure on the Schneider point of Schneider. So an example, we see the same layers, and associated to each one of the layers we have the product. And we have this system architecture is covering key 4 segments. It's covering the data center, it's covering the buildings, it's covering the infrastructure, it's covering the industry. So it's a system architecture, it's across, it's cover all the Schneider portfolio. What's the value? The value is we maximize the data value so we can improve the reliability, the efficiency, and sustainability of our customers and their data centers. So that comes to the end of my presentation. So if you have some questions.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Any questions from the audience at this point? All right, I have actually one question. There has been some talk about the AI among the whole day, pretty much. How do you see the AI in your data center?
Automation?
Artificial intelligence.
Intelligence. Well, I think coming from an energy management company and being capable of developing the systems like EcoStruxure under the digital transformation, this is something that we are considering. We are today, we are already implementing augmented reality applications that through that we can have access of products like a switchgear, a panel board.
All right, very good. Thank you, Maria, very much.
Thank you.
All right, so that's it pretty much, folks. Thanks for listening. We've been covering quite a lot of different issues from the legislation point of view, also from the data center point of view, cybersecurity point of view, blockchain, Bitcoin point of view, up to the artificial intelligence point of view, then the digital trade about SMEs, regulation, etc., and so on and so forth. Quite a lot of different stuff. I hope that you enjoyed this show today, and remember now that the drinks and some snacks are available over there and the networking will start, so please enjoy that one. From my side, thank you very much indeed for participating. Thank you.